Welcome, you miserable ingrates. Welcome to the You Deserve Better podcast. I am your host, The Other Son. Hearing other people's stories has been such an important part of my recovery from childhood trauma. The details are different, but the patterns are always there, and other survivors recognize them. It's something that cannot be taught, in my opinion, only experienced. Finding that connection with other estranged adult children has been the one thing that has really made me feel less alone. It's made me feel understood for the first time. That validation that we're not the crazy ones. Today, to share their survivor story with us, we are joined by ML. ML, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get some basic info here, some background info. First off, what gender do you identify, please?
Female.
Okay. And let's get started with some family background. Bad parents are why we are here, after all. So, who was the toxic parent for you?
Mostly my mother, and my father was just enabler supreme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what? Um, let's see. Are your parents still alive?
They are.
Are they still married?
Yes, they are.
Do you live near them?
Um, about 2 hours away.
About 2 hours away. And are you estranged from them?
I would say low communication, not completely estranged. I
Mm-hmm.
might see them once or twice a year. I have boundaries. If subjects come up, I know to leave, and I have backup plan.
Oh wow,
Um,
you're
and
you're you're a pro. You got this down.
Uh, Thank you. And then I'll text with my mother, but not very often. And if I don't like what she says, I just don't respond. And I've don't follow her on social media or anything. It just got to be too much. And then my dad, he's never been one to, communicate. That in his generation, that's the woman's job. So he just goes with the flow. If he'd want to talk to me separately, I'd be okay, but he doesn't. He hasn't reached out. So
Mm-hmm.
he's 90, so that's a different generation.
Oh wow, wow. Yeah, yeah. And with older parents, there's Uh, yeah. I feel my mother is older, my estranged narcissist mother, and I feel like I'm prepared for the inevitable, but I see other
Yes.
people's reactions, and I hope I'm ready. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm as ready as I can be. I hope I'm ready. How
Yeah.
do you feel? I mean, with your parents being older, and
Yeah, I have thought about that. And, as I would think most people with older parents, especially with an estrangement, if something would happen, would you have any regrets or anything? And no, I wouldn't at this point. No.
Mhm. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a brother and sister. And we've all taken turns being low communication and with estrangement because my mom takes turns on who her scapegoat is, who her black sheep is.
Oh, really? So,
Right.
would you say any one of them is the golden child?
I think right now it might be my sister.
Hmm.
I used to be
Oh,
until I wasn't.
really? So
So
tell me
it
about that change. Tell me about how you used to be, and now it's black sheep for you.
um my mom and I we look kind of alike, and we always got along. And then her political views changed, and she got them all entangled with her church,
Hmm.
and she became super judgmental. And
Hmm.
there's racism involved in it too. And I'm married to um someone of a different race,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and grew up in a different religious culture as well. And she really honed in on that, and it just got unbearable to the point where she implied that I raised my children not in the faith, and they're not going to the right place in eternity. So that's a hard pill to swallow. And she just seems so influenced by, she listens to this, I call it labeled Christian radio station. I
Hmm.
don't feel that it is.
Hmm.
She has it on 24/7, so she is so indoctrinated. It's crazy.
Right, right. You mentioned being married. Are there kids?
Yes, I have a daughter, and I don't know whether I'm still grappling with this. We talked about earlier. My second born child, born a male, and he identifies as gender fluid, or they identify as gender fluid. So I'm still getting my pronouns straight on that.
Right, right.
Of
Yeah.
course, my religious mother does not know that fact. So
Hmm.
here we
Hmm.
go.
Yeah, we mentioned briefly beforehand. I have a lot of sort of language habits that
Yes.
I'm currently trying to break. One that I mentioned to you is I have a tendency to say "you guys" when referring to a group of people, and I'm catching myself all the time. I'm trying to work up what my new one is going to be because to me,
People?
folks. Well, I mean, you can say people, but even that one for me, I mean, you people. I don't know that one to me. I just
Ugh.
well, yeah, in the right wrong context, rather that seems like it could be problematic. So I don't want to go that one. You folks seems too old fashioned to me, honestly.
Casual too.
You folks, you whippersnappers, So yeah. So I guess I'm still working on my replacement for that. Um, so we talked about kids. You mind if I ask how old the first and second born
um,
are?
the oldest one is 32, and then ha- has she has two little sons,
Oh, right.
2 and 4.
Oh,
And then my second child is 26.
okay, okay. All right. Wonderful young adult ages.
They are. They're fabulous.
All right. Well, let's talk a bit more about you now. Uh, how long ago? Well, I guess I want to say at what age did you realize about your childhood trauma, and I guess how long ago was that? So the example I gave for you before is, I just realized at the age of 50, which is like 4 or 5 years ago for me, about this. I was in entire denial my whole life until a crisis, a tragic event in my life, shook me loose of it. What's your situation on that?
Um, I always knew something wasn't right, but then I always looked at things. I grew up in a very rural culture, so
In the
it
U.S., in the United States?
yes,
Hmm.
yes, Midwestern,
Hmm.
and I always knew the whole culture was kind of backwards and not where okay, one example would be in church one time, a little girl was misbehaving and her dad just whacked her across the face. And, nobody thought a second thing of it. And now I'm older, and like, wow,
Hmm. Hmm.
that was severe. And then we always had a lot of pets, and they didn't live very long when they weren't well cared for. And then as I grew up, I learned other people sometimes. I'm a fan of cats. I have one in here with me now.
Hmm.
Um, some people, their cats live for 20 years, and I, I thought 1 year was a long time, so I knew something wasn't right.
Jeez. When you understood about this, was it a gradual process or was it fairly quick? For me, it was fairly quick. I had sort of an eye-opening moment where it sort of came rushing forth. But when did you realize? How was that like that moment?
Those things were all gradual, and then I had different people tell me like, when I would talk to my mother on the phone, and then after I hung up, I would be in a pissy mood, and then different people say, that's kind of weird. That's not right. But I think the real catalyst moment for me was um, after an argumentative family holiday. My daughter was a teen, and she said to me, I think there's something really wrong with your family. They're really dysfunctional. And she had spent some holidays with her boyfriend's family and extended family. And she told me how caring they were and listening. Nobody made snide remarks.
Wow. Yeah.
And they were there for each other. And I thought, really?
Mm-hmm.
But, and she said, holidays, shouldn't be like that. And my husband had quit going with me to my parents for holidays. He would fix a dish for them, and but he wouldn't go. And
Jeez.
it was for the same reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought, huh. And
Mm-hmm.
then my mom got more judgmental with me. And so then I started the work on reclaiming who I am and having more energy and emotions for myself rather than getting tied up in my mother's judgmental sanctimonious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was, you know, I have to thank my daughter for that too. For
Right.
that was really the catalyst between that and her telling me that my kids were going to hell. Those two things happened about the same time. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So.
yeah, I was older when finally like, okay, this has got to stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like oftentimes some kind of outside perspective is part of it. You know, in this case, your daughter, you know, seeing, hey, this is what a family that doesn't hate each other looks like. And for me, it was a friend who was observing from the outside and said something at the right time. So, at least in my case, you know, I was so deep in it, you know, I couldn't see for myself really, and it took that perspective from someone else to help me to put it, you know, put together the pieces together finally. It sounds like you've already been doing this a little bit, but let's talk a bit about something from your childhood. This is sort of our main topic here, big topic we're building up to. Uh, Something that seemed normal to you back then, no reason to question it, and now when you look back on it, geez, that doesn't seem like quite right. It's a little dysfunctional. What are some things like from your childhood?
Yeah, the one example I gave when we first talked online about it was there was a time with I had a friend over. We were probably 10 or 11 years old, and we decided to take an exploration hike. And, you know, we're rural out in the country. So we went through the back pasture and it hooked onto other neighbors' back pastures. And we went through creeks and woods.
Oh,
And
it's wonderful. That sounds. I'm going on a little trip with you in my mind. This is great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun. We were 11, but then, you know, we finally came out and followed this creek all the way to a town. And we finally came out in town, and then somebody saw us down by a bridge
Mhm.
and called my parents, you know, what are your kids doing? They recognized me. And then, but then I look back, I would never let my kids do that. They didn't even know where we were.
Mhm.
I had a friend over, and, you know, there had been snakes in the pasture field. The water was high in the creeks, like over our heads.
Mhm.
And one of our neighbors had a very angry bull. And it
Oh.
just, yeah, I mean, this is a country story for sure,
Yeah.
but it wasn't safe, you
Mhm.
know? I wouldn't let my kid do that without an adult, maybe with an adult and permission, you know,
Mhm.
to go on someone else's property. And back then, you know, people were more tolerant of trespassers than they are these days.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
and
Right.
and you know, and then my brother tried the same thing and he was only 6.
Mhm.
He did the same thing with his friend
Mhm.
because he thought, you know, "Well, we had so much fun."
Mhm.
And then, you know, no one would come over to our house anymore. None of our friends after the it was neglectful. We were gone for, gosh, maybe 3, 4 hours.
Right.
They didn't know. They didn't care.
Were there other times you felt like maybe they were sort of just not paying attention to you like they should have?
Yeah. And then there was another time, well, I did band one year and we had to arrange rides to get to band practice.
Mhm.
And my parents would be 2 hours late when they had to pick up. I'm like, that's not right. That's
And
neglectful.
they knew, of course, about band camp. I mean, there's no reason for them not to be there, right?
Right.
Oh, maybe they're
And
hoping
they
someone
knew.
else would take you home or something. I don't know. If you leave them out there,
Yeah.
they'll think it's like something by the side of the road, like free to a good home or something. That's yeah, that's not.
And then we'd run all over the town and because we were waiting on a ride,
Mm-hmm.
all over there was another little town. And then, you know, the local police came and checked on us.
Jeez,
Like, oh my goodness.
it's a whole hullabaloo now.
Yeah.
There's
And
trouble in
then
River
so the other
City.
parents, nobody wanted to ride with me, so I ended up dropping band.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh,
yeah. And then
oh,
I never did after school stuff because I couldn't count on them at all. So, and then my dad worked overtime, and my mom she went back to college, and then her Bible studies, that was always priority number one.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and then sometimes I thought they did it as a one up to see who could, no, it's your turn. No, it's your turn, between the two of them.
Oh, oh, so
So,
you're like just sort of the
pawn.
leverage there, yeah, in the
Yeah.
middle, yeah, yeah. Well, as we get closer to finishing up for today, I'd love to close on an up note. So, could you share something with us that has been a positive with your recovery? Something since
Yeah.
understanding your trauma and you're happy about a good thing.
Yeah. I'll go back to my daughter telling me about, your family's so dysfunctional, so messed up. And my mom just always picking on everybody and
Mm-hmm.
every holiday just being a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got invited to now it's her husband, to their extended family's celebrations.
Oh,
And that's what I do now.
oh.
I go with them.
So
And I
the
get to play with my little grandsons all day,
oh,
and their family, and they're caring. They don't second guess. Oh, why didn't so and so come? Like my parents always did. Where's your husband? Does he hate us? And on and on. No, they don't do that at all. They're so supportive.
mm-hmm.
And so that's what I do now. And I kind of picked my family.
Oh, that's
And I don't
wonderful.
have to hear my mom's judgmental, snide remarks about everything and any political discussions and any of that. So it's been really good. So that's kind of my part of my healing. And for a while, my husband didn't even want to hear about Christmas because my mom was always so horrible about it, wanting us to close our business on Christmas Eve and
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on about it. And he really hated just the mention of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So over the years, I've built back with music and cards and bling around the house. And I've
Right.
really built back my Christmas.
Oh,
And it's been a joy. And I feel like I do Christmas way better than anything I ever had in the past. So
oh,
so that's my positive note. So you
that's
can rebuild and escape and heal, and it's a good thing.
that's
it's,
really
it's a beautiful
wonderful.
thing.
It when you were describing previously it with your family the holidays, it felt to me claustrophobic, and now it feels
Yes.
like you can just there's space and you can just breathe easier and let your light shine and not without any fear, without any reservation. That's wonderful. ML, I really sincerely appreciate you and the courage it takes to tell your story, joining us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it too, and thank you for having me. It's great to be able to express it after years of thinking it through.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. If you've taken something away from the show, please support us by sharing it with your friends. The You Deserve Better podcast has a Facebook group. I would love to see you there. And by all means, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, I am your host, The Other Son. Let them burn their eyes on you.